Rania, obviously one of the other major issues that is right in front of us in terms of world events now, obviously, is this potential ground invasion by the Israelis into Rafah and the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Obviously, I think for those who have been watching, they've been bombing the area very heavily now for some time. There's a lot of sort of back and forth over exactly what's going to happen when, but it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu has, confirmed that they are going to attempt to get into Rafah, and obviously that will be very, very, it's already very, very bloody. I mean, the genocide will continue, I guess you could say. Canada, Australia, and New Zealand have actually, I believe, come out and now called for a ceasefire because of this. I think Canada maybe already had called for one. But nonetheless, I mean, you can see that, even those who have been very supportive of Israel are getting a little bit of cold feet about this one because the level of there's nowhere left to run to now. The Israelis are claiming people can this is what Netanyahu said on, I think it was on the ABC Sunday show, but on one of them, they can go back to the areas further north that the Israelis have quote unquote cleared. I think obviously we know that a lot of what I believe that they're trying to do and hoping to do is to try to push people out of the Gaza Strip. How exactly that would play, who knows? But nonetheless, whatever the exact elements of it, from the bombing alone of Rafah, I think we've seen that this is, yet another escalation of this just deplorable conduct that's taking place by the Israelis, just massive terrorism happening here in the Gaza Strip. But, nonetheless, Rania, I think maybe the thing that is sitting with me the most is how, the Biden administration talking about how, they're all about morality or whatever. They're trying to push them behind the scenes. They've been saying that since October 9th. We've been pushing them behind the scenes not to do this, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. So it's sort of a non sequitur, but I feel like the U.S. complicity in what's happening is just it was bad the whole way through, but it feels like to me it's even more pronounced because they've forced us to, listen to these stupid statements they're making about how they're trying to help people while the situation continues to escalate and they continue to send weapons and, moral support.
I mean, yeah, not just send weapons. You had this vote in the Senate. It was 66-33 was the ultimate outcome from earlier this week. And that was 66-33 voting, not just to give Israel more money, more weapons, make it easier for Biden to send weapons to Israel without even having to come to Congress, but also reinforcing the ban on UNRWA funding. So literally enforcing a ban on food and water, and basically to the people that they're sending Israel to bomb. And there's so many different angles to this. It's like your head spins trying to figure out like which part to think about first, because the situation in Rafah is apocalyptic. It is, the scenes that we're seeing aren't even like a full representation of how bad it is. You just see tent after tent after tent. And by tent, I just mean sheets. People are sheltering from the elements with sheets. And the weather there is probably similar to the weather I'm experiencing here in Beirut right now. So it's cold and it's raining a lot. It gets really cold at night. You're basically sleeping outside with hopefully a sheet covering you from when it rains. Cold every single night. And then you wake up in the morning and your life is to search for water and to search for food so that you and your family don't die of thirst and starvation that day. And it's just like you see people crawling around literally on camp. Like there's video footage of people crawling in trash bins looking for spare food to eat. Mm-hmm. There's no bathrooms to use. It's been like this for months, by the way. Like we've talked about this on the show. This is months of this. This isn't just a few weeks. This is now well into 5 months of this situation at the same time dodging bombs. Mm-hmm. And now the Israelis are saying, oh, we're going to they're bombing Rafah. They're invading various parts of it. They're raiding hospitals. Everything they basically did across the north of the Gaza Strip, the center of the Gaza Strip, they're now beginning to do in Rafah. And there is literally nowhere else for people to go. People are being sniped to death, by the way, if they do try to return to the north. So that's another lie of Netanyahu's. Mm-hmm. And then we're just like being gaslit constantly by this sociopathic administration in the US that has these spokespeople get up on podiums every day and tell us that they're doing everything they can to protect the people they are actively killing. It is insane. It is, I mean, this is like, I don't know what other words to use. The word Holocaust comes to mind.
Hmm.
The images I'm seeing, it really killed me. I saw this one video of these like young boys at the border with Egypt, and they were like talking to or yelling, shouting at these Egyptian soldiers they saw on the other side, and basically saying, okay, if you're not going to let us leave, can you at least give us your guns so we can like fight back?
Mm.
It's just so devastating, and it's why. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I continue to be. It's like a sense of bewilderment at how there are still people watching this happen,
Yeah.
and saying, yeah, but Hamas, yeah, but they deserve it. Yeah, but they use human shields. It's just the genocidal drive towards Palestinians is so extreme and so insane. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then there's the last factor I'll mention, Eugene, is
Mm-hmm.
the potential ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Gaza. It stands to be seen what the Egyptian government's going to ultimately do, but that would be a huge red line for a group like Hezbollah. So, that's another way this is playing with fire. Obviously, things have been escalating gradually between Lebanon and Israel, but they've still stayed at like a simmer compared to the potential of what could actually happen.
Yeah.
So that could blow up too if the Israelis cross that red line.
No, I think it's a good point, and there's the ongoing attacks on the Al Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis, which I believe is actually now tanks are in there, and they've forced all these people to leave. And so the war on hospitals, of course, is continuing. We're now just getting more and more information about the just like total inhumanity that people who are being, kidnapped in these mass raids where they're kidnapping and detaining people, just the worst possible sort of dehumanizing treatment that can possibly be, conceived of being put on people. I mean, you've got certainly, it seems pretty clear now, especially if you include, those who are likely trapped under the rubble, that were over 100,000 people killed or wounded, which is a just stunning statistic. And you can see there on my left, some of those images are of, some of those mass raids. And these are like not, listen, I don't know anything about anything, but from what we've seen in terms of the reporting, it seems pretty clear that most of these people are not just regular people, but anyone of a certain military age. And, it's funny, the military age male, which I know you'll remember this well, Rania, this was the whole issue with the drone strikes of the U.S. and Afghanistan. It was just if you were between 15 and 60 or something, and they saw you on a camera and a group of 5 people, they could just launch a drone strike against you. They didn't have to know anything other than you were just standing around. And we saw the recent drone strike that was done on those 3 Palestinians who were just starting a motorcycle. A guy trying to kickstart a motorcycle and his 2 friends kind of pushing him to get the thing going, and they just, took a shot at him. Who knows what they were doing? And it just, you can see the level of, just total, psyops that are happening here, where they're trying to reduce the impact of the toll of what's happening by trying to make it seem as if, some significant subset of people are, and the same thing with the UNRWA thing, like, well, 12 of them knew something about Hamas, something, to create this perception that this isn't a mass slaughter of mainly civilians. And, not that it really is justified, because obviously the Palestinian people have the right to resist. So the idea that somehow it's like more or less justified, but from the point of view of the popular imagination, you know what I'm saying? The idea of killing civilians, of course, being something that people are rightfully, very, very distressed by, I think is, yet again, you can see these attempts to try to find a way to, reduce the impact of it, and all these attempts to just distract from it. I mean, that's what I am constantly telling people. Like the whole issue of like, is there a tunnel under this? Are they doing that? Are they doing this? What happened on October 7th? Honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, this is the whole point, that this is not random. This is deliberate. The Israelis are hoping by creating a whole series of random crises around their lives that they can keep people from focusing on the real issue, which is that they're conducting this genocidal assault on the Gaza Strip day in and day out that is sparing no one, no matter what, and that they know every single thing about it, which we know from reporting from 972 magazine, that every single strike, they know what they're doing, how many people they're likely killing, and that most of them aren't actually involved in anything whatsoever. So, you have to create all these little side controversies to keep keep people from continually focusing in on that. And I think that's a lot of what we see with these various sort of things that are cropping up about what really happened, where, when, and why, and a lot of these things is to distract people. There's a Hamas base under that. It's to get people talking for a week about whether or not Al-Shifa Hospital is a Hamas base, and not the fact that clearly people who are in a hospital who are injured individuals are being starved out, shot, sniped, all these different things in a way that I think most people would find negative. So I think that's another aspect of this, is the deep sort of psyop intelligence element to this that is really, aggressively trying to draw attention away from what's happening.
Yeah, that's what the Israelis excel at, right? It's all about distracting. I mean, at this point, people have probably forgotten about it, but remember the first hospital they bombed was Al Ahli Hospital, and everybody spent 2 weeks talking about whether or not it was Islamic Jihad that did it, because the Israelis said so, right? Then it became suddenly, and now bombing hospitals is totally normal. Israel's gone to war against every single hospital in Gaza because apparently Hamas, that's the only place they put their headquarters. Well, no, that's not true. Hamas puts its headquarters wherever Israel bombs, which is all of Gaza. All of Gaza is just one big Hamas headquarters. And we're all just supposed to believe that. At one point, I think it was like, you know what? You might as well just say that every single Palestinian has Hamas, has Hamas terror tunnel inside of their veins, because it's the only thing that explains all of them being killable. I mean, it's just completely insane. And, I really do believe that there's a special place down below for Matt Miller and John Kirby. I mean, these people, I don't know, if they're actually sociopaths or what it is, how much are they being, there's not enough money that you could pay me to get up on a podium every single day and justify a genocide the way these two have. It's disgusting.
Amazingly, John Kirby actually said that Israel was better than the American military. It's like he's just a wind-up. It's like a wind-up lawyer for Israel or something. It's just insane. And he's like a crisis actor too, because he can cry on demand when it's about Ukrainians. But when it's about Palestinians, it's like, no, you don't get to be human, and I will justify literally every single atrocity against you. And the same, Matt Miller does it a little differently. He kind of smirks when he knows he's about to go viral. You can tell in the, he knows he's when he's about answering a question, he's like, this is going to go viral. Yeah. But it's at this point, it's I used to kind of enjoy, it used to be a little bit cathartic watching reporters ask them the tough questions, but you know exactly what they're going to say. They say the same script every time. There's not even any point in asking anymore. At this point, there's been a line drawn in the sand. There is a line, and you are either for genocide or against it. It is that simple. It's 5 months into this. If you are still confused, the only people who are still confused are people who either just started paying attention or people who are racist, frankly, because you have to be racist to support this on any level whatsoever. I don't care how much you hate Hamas. I don't care how much you think October 7th was such a horrible atrocity. If you think anything justifies this, something is deeply wrong with you. Yeah, 100%. Because it doesn't even conform to the most basic principles of proportionate response. You know what I mean? Again, I think people know our position. They certainly know my position as a person on this issue. I don't think that any of this is justified because it's a totally unjustifiable apartheid, settler colonial project. Exactly. But let's just say you were looking at it from the point of view of maybe both sides have a point. Okay, well then if you're claiming, Israel, and we can't even fully believe this number, that 1,200 people died on October 7th, you'd think that when 1,200 people died on the other side, that's sort of the eye for an eye kind of Hammurabi's code, type of orientation. But now you're killing 30-some thousand people. This is ridiculous. Anybody who somehow thinks this is proportionate is just insane. But, the thing is, and I think this is the important element here, and then we'll close on this, to the point you're making, Rania, about how it's totally unjustifiable, is it speaks yet again to the fact that this is a settler colonial project, because this is exactly what they said in Vietnam. All the Vietnamese, they're all quote unquote Viet Cong. The kids, all of them. So we got to kill everybody. They're everywhere. You never know. You just got to bomb them all. The French about Algeria. They're all out here killing us. They're all guerrillas. They're all supporters of the National Liberation Front. We got to kill them all. The Native Americans. Well, we got to kill them all because you can't trust them. You can't trust any of them. You know what they used to say in the Old West? The only good Indian is a dead Indian, right? So the idea is they're all complicit. They're all there. These settler colonial projects always do this. And in the past, when we're talking about indigenous people, when we're talking about Algeria, when we're talking about Vietnam, when we're talking about Malaysia, the Malay emergency, look at how many Malays were killed by the British in the 1960s there. If you want to learn more, people say that was so terrible. They never should have done that. What an evil, horrible thing. So if you believe that about all these other situations, you have to apply the same logic here. Israel, just like every other occupying power that's trying to ethnically cleanse a land in order to control it and to do whatever they want to do, is creating this completely fake narrative to dehumanize Palestinians, to facilitate this genocide. And anyone who is on the side of that, you are so far on the wrong side of history, I don't even know what to tell you. So I think it's a very good point you made there, Rania. There's no, at this point, come on. Like even if you try to justify it, you can't. So we will obviously, go ahead.
Eugene, I just want to throw one more thing. This is a live stream genocide. Like you can't even claim to not really know what's happening, because all you have to do is open your phone and see what's happening. It's being live streamed.
Yep.
Both sides are live streaming it, by the way, and one side is actually celebrating the genocide. Mm-hmm. So that's who you choose to align yourself with, is egomaniacal psychos who are consumed by hate and just cruelty. Then go right ahead, be on the side of the genocidaires. But you have, like I said, you have, chosen the side you want to be on in history, and the world will look back on this moment and they will see who sided with the Nazis and who sided with the people being murdered.
Just
and
real
it's
quick,
very simple to me.
UNRWA just reporting that 17,000 children in Gaza have been separated from their parents. 17,000 children, and I'm sure that includes.
Imagine justifying that. Imagine justifying that. Imagine justifying orphans. And these aren't children who were just like, they were at a concert and like that. That's like scary enough when you like everybody has a memory from
if
when
you
they're
lose a kid in the mall or something like that. Yeah.
Grocery store or the mall, and it's like really traumatic. Even like you remember that and you're like, oh, I was really scared. This is in the worst circumstances imaginable. These are people who have lost their parents because they survived a bombing of their building and spent maybe like a day in the rubble thinking they were going to die too.
Yeah.
Like these are people who lost their siblings. These are people whose families died the worst deaths imaginable, suffocating under rubble. Like it's just unfathomable the trauma that people are going to come out of when this is eventually over, if they end up surviving. Just yesterday in Lebanon, there was the Israelis hit a building in Nabatieh in southern Lebanon, and they killed an entire family. And one of the kids in that family, this little boy, survived. And there's now this iconic image of him being pulled out of the rubble. He's like in his pajamas, clearly like had been tucked into bed before this building was bombed. And you just think to yourself, this kid is now an orphan. What is the rest of his life going to be like? And how does he get over that trauma? And he looked so terrified because he thought he was going to die too. And now his entire family's gone. And there's so many kids like that in Gaza. And now more and more of them across Lebanon. And it's just like the destruction of an entire generation of children.